Bourbon Barkeep, my name's Curtis. We got release number 2 from the Maker's Mark wood finishing series. This one, they went with a little American oak. Let's see if it's any good. Last year, Maker's Mark came out with the Heart release. Felt like it did pretty good on a lot of other channels. I was late to the game. I'm not the biggest Maker's Mark fan, but you know what? These kind of limited releases that they've been doing, I kind of like the BEP, the last license plate that they did. Then I scooped up the Heart release. I was like, you know what? It's pretty darn delicious. Now I'm sitting here with release number 2 saying, let's give this one a whirl. Much like what Booker's has been doing lately, the Keeper's release, giving a little tip of the cap. This is going to be a tip of the cap to the people that actually oversee the bourbon maturation process. Did they get a free bottle? Did they deserve one? I hope the answer is yes on both accounts at this point. So how did they actually make the juice? Well, they already had a bunch of juice sitting around. So they had their Maker's Mark cask strength. They had 2 different stave profiles. One stave profile they plopped in there, aged it for about 5 weeks. They're like, okay, that sounds great. Stave profile number 2 threw in there for 5 weeks, and they said, no. We need 4 more. So that's 9 weeks. And I hope that was pretty educational for you because I had no idea. Now, let's get into the specs of this guy. Mash bill is going to be 70% corn, 16% soft red winter wheat. And I wasn't sure if they used that in the 2024 or the Heart release. Didn't notice it, but at least in this guy, they changed it up a little bit. Holiday actually uses that. So let's see if Holiday's onto something. Maker's Mark starting to dip their toe into the soft red winter. And then whatever the rest is malted barley. Is that 14%? Hopefully. Tough to keep track of all these numbers when you're just spouting off nonsense sometimes. Proof is going to be 109.2. This guy clocked in at SRP of $75. Yes. You know, sometimes you get that $15 markup and you're like, why? I'm in here way too much anyways. Why are you doing this to me? This time, treated me right. It's a good day. Lastly, non-age stated, feel like it's kind of known, at least according to the website. This is with the cask strength Maker's Mark being aged around that 5 to 6 year mark. Lastly, the main piece of this, if you will, we've already kind of hit on it with the stave profile. Maybe I was a little excited about the math. That was just zinging out there. This is going to be finished in 10 new American oak staves. So if you forgot that part, it's back there. Once again, am I the biggest Maker's Mark fan? No. Have I been intrigued by at least their last release? Yeah. So I wouldn't say I got high hopes, but I had to pull the trigger. I just had to. Would I have if I didn't have a channel? That's debatable. We'll see. Let's get on the nose. Let's see if you should pull the trigger and like and subscribe while I shove my nose in here. As you would imagine, that oak is heavy. With that being that new American oak and not the French oak, which I feel like is maybe a little more common. Maybe I'm making that up. Heavy oak, heavy damp oak is kind of how it's coming across, but also heavy caramel. This is very sweet on the nose, a lot of caramel candy, vanilla, and oak so far. Kind of swirl helped. Opened up some baking spice, maybe that caramel instead of going into that Werther's candy that was kind of in the back of my mind. It is getting a little fresher and a good fresher caramel. I wouldn't say fresh baked, doesn't have that richness, but that slightly elevated, maybe the Werther's for rich people, which I've never seen because I've never been in the rich people grocery store. That vanilla continues to kind of get ramped up, just kind of like that caramel, that fancy, expensive rich people caramel candy, not the Werther's that everybody's buying BOGO, but even that vanilla is kind of getting into like this nice vanilla extract. Slight baking spice coming out, not heavy cinnamon, just kind of like this really nice baking spice. I mean, more nutmeg, if you will. And then there's a little bit of like a nice kettle corn in there. You know, maybe it's kind of that wheat funk, but with the sweetness being so elevated, maybe you get a little kettle corn in there, which is kind of exciting. Highly sweet nose. Hopefully it gets tamed down. I'm not this overly candied whiskey type of fan. You know, but Let's see. The nose has piqued my interest. Yeah, it's pretty good. Not gonna lie to you, it's good. That caramel is still there. A lot more cinnamon spice on the tongue, kind of in a good way. A lot of oak coming through, not really in an overpowering way. But if you told me this was 6 year in a blind, I'd be like, there's no way. That's a lot of oak. I'm gonna call fib, and you're gonna say, it's American oak finished. I'd be like, you cheeky. As it kind of sits on the tongue, it does kind of develop into a touch sour, maybe like an overcooked, maybe even like a slightly burnt caramel. Maybe like that vanilla goes more into like a toasted sugar, but just like 2 seconds too long. They were on that flame, on that creme brulee, and you're like, no. And it's just too late by that time, you know? Slight sourness, a lot of brown sugar just kind of hanging on the palate here. Overall, that 109 proof is really nice. I really enjoy kind of this really 107 to 113 area. I think that it gives you a great finish. It's not overpowering on the tongue, and you don't wake up drooling, snoring, and your wife's like, you did one pour, huh? You're like, one, sorry. All right, sip 2. We know what we're kind of in for. We've acclimated, and then maybe if this goes well, maybe we revisit 2024 and see which one should you buy, because I do feel like I've seen the heart release. Man, that's tough. Keepers in heart. It's not close in words, but it's in the mind. Maybe we do a little revisit. Maybe see if heart release is still on secondary for a reasonable price. We shall see, but first, sip 2 on the palate. Gotta be honest with you, I'm really enjoying it. That sip 2, that burnt sugar, maybe they did it right this time. There is still kind of this bitterness in there to where you can get around this kind of dark chocolate in there, but ultimately it hangs. The viscosity is fantastic on it. There is kind of like this toasted marshmallow with this bitter dark chocolate. So it is kind of this nice kind of play in the back of your tongue. Overall, I enjoy it. It doesn't blow me away at $75. I think it's a buy. Now it's time to revisit 2024. I like seeing where some of these bottles have come. I understand it's probably not sitting on shelves, but I would like to think that if the heart release is still sitting on websites, maybe it's fairly close in price at this point to what SRP was. So let's get that poured up, do a little side by side, and not a what would you buy, but we do have to do a whiskey of the year ranking. Heart release, let's do a quick revisit. I don't feel like we can do a full review since it is last year's, to be fair. This is a higher proof. We got coming in at 112 proof, and this one was finished in French oak staves. So you still got the 10 just piled in those barrels, French oak. If you're kind of not even newer on your whiskey journey, just if you're on your whiskey journey and you're like, hey, what's all these finished in American oak and French oak things about? This is a pretty good experiment to build your palate up, see what that French oak finish is like, see what that American oak finish is like, and maybe save yourself some money down the line. You're like, hey, that's French oak finish. And you're like, I hate it. And you're like, okay, that seemed aggressive, but here we are. The heart release. I'm telling you, it's harder than you would think. I don't know why. Coming off much darker, like maybe a blackberry or blueberry pie. I think I like that last year's nose more. Yeah, I think so. It's just a little richer, goes a little darker. That's just the nose though. Let's get on the palate, see what we got. Yeah, that's better. Last year's is better. There's no sourness in the back. A lot of brownie, vanilla ice cream, brown sugar. Oh boy, that's delightful. Yeah, is what it is. I'll do a quick revisit, see if we get some final thoughts, get into some scoring, go from there. Quick recap. We got our heart release. I enjoy it more. I wish I would have made the channel last year. Just was a little gun shy. Mainly, like I said, not a big Maker's Mark fan. But these two, highly enjoyable. This guy coming in much darker. I mean, it's fudge, it's berry, blackberry, blueberry, raspberry, maple syrup. And it's delightful. If I had the option to go back and pick, both of these are on the shelf, I'm picking the heart release. I can't help it. That being said, Keeper's Release, it's pretty good. We'll reflect that in our rankings. This guy's just coming off a little brighter, a little more butterscotch, that toasted sugars, a little more oak coming through, I would say. So more oak heavy with those American oak staves. I think that French oak just adds a lot more, little toasted marshmallow and chocolate. This one just adds a little more wood to it, and not a bad thing. I'm going to gravitate towards the brownie. This toasted sugar is extremely good. So now we get into our senses category. Senses category, it's just what's in the glass. It doesn't matter what we paid, it doesn't matter age, it's just pure experience. And the experience is really good. I love the proof point. I love the proof point on both of these. I think this one has a better hug than what even the higher proofed heart release does, even though it's the lower proof. Maybe it's because it's a little fresher crack, but ultimately tonight, a little better hug. The viscosity is fantastic. It tastes very rich and full, and I could keep coming back to it without being overpowered in sweetness, which sometimes some of these bottles can get just too sweet. You're like, all right, I'm taking like 8 months off of you. But this one, it is great. I'm putting into the great category. We'll go 82. I mean, it's lower great, but it's great nonetheless. There's your gold star. Now, bang for the buck. That's something to where we actually do take age, price into consideration. And there's no rhyme or reason behind some of these numbers. Part of it is what I pay above it. Is it accurately priced? Or would we go the complete opposite way? That's a thing. This one at $75, if you told me it was 80, 85, I'd be tempted. It's good. It tastes above what Maker's Mark is doing elsewhere. It's the limited edition that you want it to be, especially if you're a Maker's Mark fan. You're probably gladly paying $85 for it. So I'd pay slightly above it, and I'm really happy I have it on the shelf. We'll go 68. 75 I think is appropriately priced. So I think it's an easy buy for me. It's very sippable, especially with it coming kind of in that spring, summertime. I think it's a great nighttime summer pour that you're happy to share. Wrapping up, we're going to plug this into our Whiskey of the Year rankings, see how it does. Obviously, we revisit because I own the bottle, so why wouldn't you? But ultimately, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully, you all can find this one. If you are that brownie lover and this is around, then you got that going for you as well. But ultimately, I think this is a hit. I think it's a buy. 75. It's pretty good for a limited release. Curious your thoughts. What do you all think? Are you Maker's Mark fans or not fans like myself and still enjoy? Or are these just hard passes? Like, subscribe, and we'll see what we got next week.